Okay, monthly update May 2025. I have a new setup today with basically the phone wirelessly connected and then those two cameras, microphone here. And let's see how this works because I want to show something on my screen. I have a lot of updates to share, some really big ones this month. Actually, I'm going to put the phone away. Yeah, I have been doing some money mindset work. There's some news on learning Portuguese. The biggest update is around how we want to live in the next few years. And yeah, new opportunities when it comes to that. And then also what we want to do with our business and integrating AI and some of the challenges that come with that, as well as some reflections on our relationship structure, or more like maybe the beliefs and stories I have around relationships in general, because Aubrey Marcus released this podcast episode that went viral and a lot of people freaked out, and it sparked conversation. And yeah, so a few things about that. And then we just came back from a retreat in Georgia where I had to sign an NDA, so I can't share too much about it, but just a little bit my own personal reflections. So maybe let's start with some of the little things. I decided to dive back into money education and money mindset. And I read The Automatic Millionaire, which is a super cool book that like I and everyone should read when we are like 10 years old, because then we can make a few choices only once and we become millionaires by having the right system set up and just, starting to save and invest early and then compound interest. So that was a useful book. And now I'm reading The Psychology of Money, which is, like the title says, more around the psychology of it. Also very interesting. And we also decided, Diara and I, that I'm going to take more control over our finances again. Right now, she's kind of doing the budgets and all of that because she's more structured and organized. But in terms of the behavior, I would be the better person to handle that because I have more of a saving behavior and I want to reduce expenses as much as possible and only pay for things that are really needed or that really increase the quality of our life, or very valuable experiences. I don't really care about luxury at all, which is good because then we have more money left over to invest back into our business or into, for example, the future projects that I'm going to share more about in a second and how we want to live. Another small thing is I stopped my weekly Portuguese classes because I want to sign up for an intensive in the next few months where I go like 3 times a week for a few hours over like 3 weeks or so. There's a few different setups. And I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be really good. And I also did one other session with another teacher that I could imagine maybe working with. And yeah, I don't want to lose momentum because it's building up, and I'm able to somewhat have some kind of a conversation with my Portuguese teacher. So yeah, that feels good, and there's still a lot to learn. And then actually, I'm gonna flip the order here a little bit. I have my notes here, but the big thing about how we want to live, I have a whole presentation that I'm gonna show. Oh, other quick things. I started listening to an audio program from Tony Robbins. I don't know when it is from, but it's called Get the Edge. And it's really cool. It's just like his energy is quite infectious, and none of the stuff is rocket science. It's, personal growth and how to break patterns that are harmful, how to achieve goals. Like all of that stuff is around for a long time, but it's just remembering, implementing. And yeah, whenever I dive in and do the work myself and journal and learn, that also then flows back into the coaching conversations I have with my clients. So it's this super cool setup in a way where working on myself and learning about personal growth is also investing in my business in a sense. Yeah, okay, let's talk about relationships, and it's connected with the retreat in Georgia. It's the first time ever I was in Georgia. Quite interesting. We learned a little bit about the country and the culture there, and yeah, in a way they had it really rough. They got occupied many, many times. Russia is still occupying parts of Georgia, and yeah, other nations have occupied, kind of took over the last hundreds and hundreds of years, many times, and yeah, in a way, it's cool that they're still there and they're still kept their culture, and in another way, it's also sad that a lot of their identity is wrapped around surviving, right? Which makes sense, but yeah, just I don't know, it felt a little sad to just see the people there talk about, or the guides that we had, and just learning about this country and what it has been through and how it, of course, shaped their identity in a way. Also, drinking alcohol is very celebrated there. It's like a big part of the culture, which I'm not a big fan of celebrating such a harmful behavior, and yeah, I don't have to go into that too much. So part of that retreat was a temple night, actually 2 temple nights. It's basically a sex positive space, a space with a lot of intention and a sacred way of looking at sexuality and sensuality, and with that comes the conversation for the hour and me. Okay, what are our boundaries? Do we want to play with others or not? And if yes, how, and so on. And since many years, since I learned about polyamory, I had, and I think I still have, this perspective that the reason why I'm jealous and why we have like an agreement to be mainly monogamous and to not intimately engage with other people, at least to a certain, or after a certain point, is because there's some fear, there's some insecurity, right, around maybe the partner leaving us or something like that, and very understandable. And I was always aiming to get to a place where I don't have those fears and insecurities anymore, and I can give my partner total freedom and just trust that as long as she wants to be with me, she will be with me. I don't need to limit her choices, limit her freedom, kind of put her in a cage in a way. Because that doesn't seem, very conscious or loving, but coming from a place of fear. But so this ties back to this podcast episode from Aubrey Marcus, where he announced, a year ago, that he's in sacred union now with his wife, and now they have a new person in the relationship, and so he's with 2 women now, and also he allows them to have lovers. And it's not easy, not for him, not for, I guess, most people. And then, because this went viral and a lot of people, saw red flags, and for good reasons, there was a lot of spiritual, what's it called, whitewashing, using a lot of fancy words for explaining things that you could use normal language for. And one video that I watched where 3 guys were kind of talking about this podcast, they all seem to be very old school. One man should be with one woman and nothing else. And they brought up this topic that what if it's just our natural way of being, and allowing your partner, or trying to allow your partner to have more freedom to play with others and to have, fun and love and other experiences might just go against our nature, right? So certain things are hard, that would be emotionally hard, and maybe it's not something that we can grow on, or we should grow on overcoming those fears and insecurities, if they are just, the natural way of being, if that makes sense. That's not what I believe, but I'm just considering that. Because there are things that are hard that we shouldn't do, right? Let's say you have a purpose in life, a passion, you're serving people, you're doing it. You could do something else, but maybe it's just not your thing, and it would be so hard for you to do it. Then what's the point, right? If your mission, your soul's purpose, whatever your calling, your values are here, and you try to go against them, it's not necessarily a smart idea. There are a lot of things that really are good for us, for our growth, that are hard and that we should do, but not everything that is hard is worth doing. So yeah, I'm just sitting with that. Yeah, I think I'm not going to share more about the retreat. It was an interesting experience. I would probably do it again. There were also things that didn't go so well or so smooth, or where I felt like some things were out of integrity a little bit. But yeah, overall, I'm very grateful that I had this opportunity, and yeah, leave it at that. Okay, then last thing before going into the big news is around AI. This is a very, when I say around AI, what I mean is there's a lot of cool things that we can do for our business, Yara and I together, using AI for kind of internal processes, but then also helping our clients leverage AI more. And I would love to really just dedicate myself to coaching. I have 3 clients at the moment, and every time I do sessions with them, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. But at the same time, there's so much happening with AI, and we need to stay on it. Yeah. And I feel like there's just a person missing. We need someone who's really, really understands this whole technology and can set up the systems and try things and really proactively think what makes sense for our business and for our clients. And we don't have that person yet. Paying someone, a few €1,000 a month, would not be that easy at the moment. And with this new project where we also need finances for, I'm like, I don't know. And Diara is already holding so much of that business. She's delivering. She's right now in a session with 2 of our clients. And so, yeah, me just stepping out completely also doesn't seem like a smart move. And I'm still just in this tension that I can't really fully resolve. Yeah, that's that. Okay, now I'm going to share with you this new big idea. First, how it got started. It was quite interesting because I think I shared in the last video that we are looking into buying a house, getting a mortgage, and like all of that stuff. And friends of us, they moved to Caldas da Rainhas, which is an hour north of Lisbon. It's a beautiful city. There's an art school. It's pretty close to the ocean. There's this big lagoon on the ocean. Amazing. We went there and visited them. And we don't want to live in a city anymore. We also don't live in another city that may be a little bit smaller than Lisbon. So then I took the car and I drove around the city a little bit and just looked at houses there and the villages and the landscape is really beautiful. There's of course a bunch of villages, but if you have a house in a village, it's still not it. I want to be out the door in nature. There are some houses harder to find where you are basically on a street, but then in your backyard you have a garden. But not easy to find. And even if we would find one, then we are there all on our own and we can't really have friends be our neighbors because they would need to find another house and they would need to have the money to pay for that house and all of that. So then I was just looking on Google Maps, right? I was just looking at, okay, where do I see a lot of nature? Let's just go there. And then I saw this thing. It said tiny house world. I was like, that's interesting. I clicked on it. I saw it's a German website, German domain. And then I was like, you know what? I know who this is because I have friends who told me 2 years ago that they work with this guy called Uwe, and he had this camper van business and now he's building tiny houses. And I was like, this must be it. So I call and then pretty spontaneously I'm able to visit. And this is how this whole new idea started. So here is the presentation that I made initially to convince Tiara that this is a good idea, because we were looking into houses and of course she likes the nice, modern, new, freshly built, fancy houses that cost like, $500,000. So I was like, okay, I need to convince her that this might also be a good option. She's convinced now, and I'm super excited and so grateful that our vision aligns now so much. But so here is what we have. Our initial vision was owning a huge piece of land with a natural spring overlooking stunning nature, a body of water close by. We have a big house with a tower, like something like this here. Our friends have their own houses on the land. We have shared spaces like a pool, sauna, paddle courts, cold plunge, maybe a content studio to create super cool videos and all of that. And then we have someone as part of our community who grows food, organic, regenerative food for us. I made this, let's see if this works here. I made this image first with, Midjourney or something, and then I put it into a video AI thing. I got this little clip, and yeah, that would be nice. It would be super nice to, to have that. And maybe we will at some point, but getting a huge piece of land is gonna be, 5 million, 10 million, depending on the land. And then building a house like this takes multiple years. You need to get a permit, and we don't have the resources to do that right now. Even if our business takes completely off, it would still be a long time to actually live in a house like that. Now, okay, just set that challenges. Yeah, okay, this is this, blah, blah, blah. Just talked about all of this. So this was a house that we actually looked at, and we saw it in real life, just from the outside. And then we're like, actually, doesn't feel so good anymore. It's $500,000. Maybe we could get a mortgage for it, but we would still spend $500,000 on a house, right? To live in, not as an investment, to get a return of investment, just to live in. And 3 bedrooms, it's pretty spacious, but still 3 bedrooms. If our family grows, not really extendable. Yeah, like I said earlier, we can't be neighbors with our friends. And there's no nature around. Even though you see a little bit of nature, it's like it's in a smaller village, but you walk out, there's concrete, and then also the whole house has those walls around, which is a big thing here in Portugal. Even if there's a forest right behind you, the house still has a wall around it. Yeah. So what we really want is we want to live in community, very important. We want to live in nature, and with this whole idea, tiny houses, becoming financially independent is so much more a real possibility, really in the short term, not when our business makes millions and millions, but It will lower our expenses because we don't have to pay rent anymore. We don't have to pay a mortgage. Maybe, yeah, that's still an open question how we can finance it. Maybe at the first year or two, but the 2 years of rent that we are paying in this apartment right now, we could already have bought a tiny house for the same money, right? And the money here is just gone. We paid basically over 2 years around 50,000 euros, and the money is just gone. So, tiny house community. This is I'm just gonna leave that there. You can take a screenshot. Something that I wrote with ChatGPT as kind of like a visioning thing for Diarra. And then I created a whole bunch of images as well. It's gonna be hard to find a huge, amazing tree like this, but yeah, multiple tiny houses, living in community, sharing meals, building a deck. That's kind of a must-have if you have a cool tiny house. The ones that we are looking at, you will see pictures in a second, they are on a trailer, so they can be moved. But yeah, building a terrace around it makes a lot of sense because then you have more space outside as well. Yeah, and then, having maybe a place for a bonfire if it's not too dry, living with our friends, living in community, growing vegetables, having some animals, some dogs, some cats maybe. I am so excited for that. And now we're looking at some real photos. So this is one of those tiny houses. It has a bunch of windows. You can have cork outside. You can also have normal wood. Cork's a little bit more expensive. This is one of the upstairs bedrooms. You can't stand here, but it's still, like, it's high enough, I would say. And then look at this amazing window corner here. Yeah, really beautiful. This would be the living room. You see more photos that are furnished as well in a second. The kitchen with full-on stove, oven, dishwasher. Okay. This is another empty one. And the design can be adjusted, right? So if you don't want the whole corner window here, up to the bedrooms, there's a bedroom on both sides. Can be completely open, completely closed, half closed. There are many different options that you can decide on. And yeah, so this comes fully equipped and it costs around 75,000. So it's quite a lot for a tiny house. You can get them much cheaper, and there's more about prices later. But yeah, this is one where people are living in. You can see here kind of half open, yeah, outdoor area. This is right in front, terrace. And it could be 2 bedrooms here, or one space could be used for something else as well. Little work corner there. And then if we need extra space, right, you can buy something like this for 10,000 euros. And it could be an office space, content studio, whatever, just extra storage or a gym. We buy something for 10K and then just put some equipment in. We have our own gym. And the other option are yurts. So this is cool because my friends that I mentioned earlier, they lived in camper vans at the beginning. They were renting them out. They run this as a business now. And then they learned how to build a yurt. And now they live in a piece of land, like also not too far from Lisbon, in a yurt. They have an outdoor area that has a roof over it, and then a kitchen that's outside, and then this pretty big round yurt. And they were saying it would cost around probably 15,000 euros to get a medium-sized one. This is what they have. Or a large one for maybe around 20,000. Maybe a small one even less. So yeah, and then there's another company who is building yurts. And that's a very exciting idea to even combine tiny house and a yurt. Those are some AI designs that I created. This is from a yurt that I found on Airbnb. So they have a little kitchen here inside, stove for the winter. Yeah, and then I just did more research and collected a bunch of stuff here. So this is for 13,000, a mobile home, also on a trailer that you can move, basically ready to move in. That again, if we need more space, we could buy something like that. From this side, the photo, and then back here is the bathroom, and then behind that is a bedroom. Right, so it's not so bad for 13,000. Practical implementations. So with tiny houses, we don't need buildable land because it's a trailer with a load on it. So I'm not 100% sure, it's a tiny bit of a gray zone, but depending on where it is, should be totally fine. And you can get a piece of land for not a lot of money. This one is right next to a road, which is good because sometimes the land is not accessible by road and you need to build a road first. This one is right next to where the tiny houses are being built, and there's already a community here. This is pretty big, 150,000, but yeah, an amazing location. If we would find 10 friends, would be 15,000, and we just own this land, right? Otherwise, we could also rent land for like 200 or 300 euros a month. For example, here, this is pretty bushy here, but Uwe, the guy who owns all of this, he can free up space in the middle of nature, basically surrounded by trees and bushes, and then we could live here if we wanted to be a little bit more secluded. So there are a lot of interesting options. It's even possible to be completely in nature, without water access, and then to get water delivered by the municipal or like the firefighters once a month in those big cubes, water cubes. Yep. And yeah, here, tiny house. Yeah, and then having an additional tiny house or yurt, which would be a lot less in terms of investment, that we can rent out. That could be an amazing source of like passive income. And then without the expense for rent, it's pretty easy to become financially independent, it seems, right? Of course, running an Airbnb business is still some work, but if the house is in 5-minute walking distance from where we live, yeah, I could see that as such a great option. Okay, I made some calculations here. Yeah, this is a house to see, okay, just in terms of investing, right? If we would invest money for a house to just use it as a rental income, it would take a long time to break even. With tiny houses, it can be a lot faster, depending on how much we can rent it for. And I could even see to do some in-person coaching, like some, like a 1-week experience for example, where someone comes and basically lives with me and they get coaching every day, and we really like a retreat, like a personal one-to-one retreat, with us in nature. Yeah, that could be an amazing opportunity. Cool. Yeah, and then here there are some pieces of land for under 10,000 euros. And it's just the idea to own land and to then make it nice and plant trees and food and all of that. This one even has like a little river, only 5,000 euros. It's not so big, but this is in Sintra, even a super nice area. What else do we have? Yeah, this one is a lot bigger. How much was this? Oh, it has those beautiful stones. It's close to this huge stone excavation thing. I thought I put the price there. This one has a well. It's up here, 8,000 euros for 3,000 square meters. Yeah, agricultural land, which I think this wouldn't work because some land is classified as agricultural, where I think you can't really put a tiny house on there. Yeah, some things we still need to clarify. This is if we would have no well and no access to like the city water system. We could get water delivered and just buy a bunch of those. They're not very expensive. And then, yeah, maybe once a month have water delivered. It would be nice to be completely off grid as well, to be completely autonomous, but yeah, we have options. This is from the tiny house world. If you want to have a terrace, they provide that as well. The solar panels, water connections, and basically if you are attached to their community, and then they plant you kind of a garden, make it nice around the house. Yeah, so this is where this community is. It's an hour north because you can take the A8, the highway, just up here, and if you want to go here, it's like 45 minutes, even though it's so much closer than direct line. But here you have like all of those tiny roads, and here you can just go all the way up, and then basically you're there. There's a cool Montessori school. There's some nice nature around. Yeah, it's a pretty cool area. And then I looked at Airbnb to see, okay, what are other people renting out their tiny houses for? So this is basically 95 a night, and then people love it. It also looks super cozy inside. And then here, right, like 95 a night is not bad, and you get a cleaning fee on top. And the Airbnb service fee seems to be also calculated separately. Not the best location. Ours would be much more closer to Lisbon, maybe closer to the ocean. And this is a yurt. Like this setup, I would guess you can set that up for 30K. Like the yurt and then, a bed, a little bit of furniture. Should be possible. This one, the nature around looks very stunning, but very simple. Like this has not the best design, I would say, inside. Also goes for 90 a night. And then this is an even cheaper option to get a dome like this. They have a bathroom in the dome and a super tiny, not very beautiful kitchen thing. 114 a night. Sintra, right? Better area. Cleaning fee 45 euros. And then I found something here for 4,300. You could get something like this set up. It might be a little bit more. This I think is a smaller one, but still, it's not that expensive, right? Maybe, with one of those and then some outdoor community kitchen, maybe 3 or 4 of those. This could be a pretty good side income. Here another like an old camper van there for 80 a night. Yeah, that's it. So we're in the middle of trying to figure out how is this possible. We're talking to some friends, and one friend, he is a consultant for co-living spaces, so he has a lot of knowledge and he has a very similar vision, and also started to kind of put it out there in the world, and we're gonna link up soon. Yeah, so I feel very excited that maybe in a year from now we might live in nature. And I know from the past, when I was in Australia for a year, I did a few just kind of handyman jobs here and there. It's so fulfilling to just work with your hands, with your body, and you see what you have created. There's just something about it. I love coaching, and I can do coaching from wherever. And the more I feel grounded and centered, the better the coaching will be. But also just spending my free time creating things and building things, building a sauna and planting, vegetables and trees, and just making your living space nice. It's very rewarding. So yeah, that's the news. I'm gonna keep you updated here next month again. Hopefully we know a little bit more by then. We also talked to a mortgage broker to see if maybe we can get a piece of land with a house financed, because banks don't give mortgages on tiny houses, right? So, or on just land. But yeah, that means we have to be resourceful, creative on how we could finance that, because we don't have 75,000, plus maybe another let's say 15,000 for yurt, because only living in one tiny house might be a little bit too small for us with the calls that we both have to do and so on. And also just, yeah, having at least 2 separate spaces would be really nice. But yeah, we'll see. I'm also not in a rush to move out of here because I love our apartment. It's amazing here. But it also feels really good to have a more concrete plan and next steps, next chapter, and then we will have nature baked into our day-to-day life. And that's the best way to have those desires fulfilled, right? If there's friction and you always have to go somewhere and you have to plan for it, if like you want to be in community, but then you need to go and meet friends and coordinate, it's just not gonna happen that often. But if you set yourself up in a way where the things that you really value, community, nature, they're automatically there every single day. You don't have to do anything to get it anymore because it's just there. I think that's a smart way to go about it. And yeah, I'm very excited. All right, this was a longer video. And see you next month. Peace.